And recording for the May 19th meeting of the Connecticut State Community College Senate is called to order. Is there a motion to accept the agenda?
Motion to approve.
I actually would like to add something to the agenda.
Roberta, you have an edit?
Yes, please. I would like to add a discussion about CPAS and the college catalog for Connecticut State.
I'm sorry, what is the item?
CPAS, CPOS, and the CT State College catalog.
Are there any other edits to the agenda? Is there a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
Al, someone has their hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Felicia?
Sorry about that, Elle. I believe Deneva Wilson had sent 2 motions over to you that should have been included on the agenda this month.
No, ma'am.
Oh.
I did not receive any agenda items from Housatonic.
Yes.
I did receive emails, but I did not receive any motions or agenda items.
Okay.
What would you like to add those, Felicia?
Yes, please. Should I send it to you or?
Nope, just go ahead and let me know what they are. And I will share, folks, that right now it is unlikely that we will make it through new business by 2:30. So I'm happy to add them to the agenda, but we should probably think now about extending our meeting time to 3 o'clock if we hope to get through all of the new agenda items. Felicia, if you'll put your items in the chat, I will just copy and paste them.
Okay, I will attach the 2 resolutions that we have for degree works and classroom course size.
On classroom
Course capacities, I'm sorry.
course capacity, and what was the second one?
Degree works, a resolution for that. I will send both of those now. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have an amended agenda, which I will now share with you.
Al, it's Nicola. May I just remind all senators that please, if you have not yet edited your name to include SEN before your name, could you please do so now? That is so when we take votes, we know that we are counting the senators and not inadvertently counting guests. Thank you.
So we actually had a motion to accept the agenda as presented. Is that motion, is there a friendly amendment to accept as edited? Brian, who? Hi, folks. If you could please mute yourselves. Brian, who made the motion to accept the agenda as presented?
I actually don't know. I was trying to capture everything and get Roberta and Felicia's stuff on there.
Okay, no worries. Can I ask that the original motion be withdrawn?
Okay.
We need an action on that, folks.
Yes, this is
Thank
Kirsten. You can withdraw the original motion.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
This is
Yes,
Roberta.
this is Kirsten. I move to accept the agenda as amended.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Right, John, how many yeses do we have?
26, 27, 28.
We have 28 yes. Please put your hands down. We have 4 hands remaining. Please put your hands down. Felicia, Crystal, and Angelo. Crystal and Angelo, please put your hands down.
Okay.
All those opposed to amending the agenda, please vote now. Seeing no objections, the motion carries. All right, folks. Well, thank you very much for what would ordinarily be our last meeting of the year, but I will actually ask you to consider an emergency meeting this summer if necessary. So today we will have a presentation by our Bylaws and Charter Committee. And as we consider their proposal, I would like you to keep in mind that nearly a quarter of our senators worked on this charter for us. But before we get to the charter, our part-time committee will be presenting. And with regard to the resolution that Ariel Robinson will present today, please consider that if we adopt that resolution, we will need to edit the charter before we move forward. So the last thing I'm asking for you today is for Senate to consider our role in the CSCU budget crisis. President Maduka has been visiting the 12 colleges. Most of us have heard him already. And during those visits, he is asserting that shared governance will play a critical role in this crisis. And I agree. And to that end, I will ask Senate to consider meeting this summer if the budget crisis remains. So for professional staff who are already on contract, that poses less of a problem. But for faculty who are off contract, I am asking that you send your phone numbers and personal email to the Vice President of Faculty so that if warranted, the Senate can have an emergency meeting this summer. Also related to the issue of shared governance is the need to work more collaboratively with CT State governance, or with CT State leadership, excuse me. We are still struggling to make progress on the issue of compensation and release. And, you know, we are tasked with the tough stuff. The easy issues don't come our way. So we will continue to redouble our efforts to work in that capacity. With that said, Brian, can you please share your screen and we will move to approving the past minutes. Do you have
Sure, no problem.
do you have sharing privileges, Brian?
I believe so. Hold on a second.
Thank you.
This is Roberta. I move that we accept our March and April minutes.
Thank you, Roberta.
Is there anybody that is interested in looking over the March minutes at this point? I would ask if there's an objection at this point. Oh, okay.
Hearing no objections.
Does anybody want to look through the February minutes and I can share my screen? Everything has been presented.
February we had shared. We had
I mean,
already
excuse
done-
me, April, my apologies.
There we go.
April
will-
minutes.
I will admit I did not have time to look over this. We had graduation, all kinds of things.
You don't need to, we don't need to speak to the issues, only objections or edits.
It's Nicola. I second Roberta's motion to accept the minutes.
Roberta, was that for March or for both?
Both.
Both, thank you. We
Oh,
have a
thank you.
motion and a second. Are there any objections to accepting the minutes? Are there any objections to accepting the minutes? Excellent.
Hannah Laura has her hand raised.
Oh, yes,
I-
Hannah.
I do apologize. If I do find something after the fact, may I still send in a comment afterwards?
You could send in a comment, but the minutes will be already accepted. There are no objections, so the minutes are approved, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we are running 2 minutes ahead of schedule. This is hopeful. President Maduko, thank you for coming. I do hope you can limit your comments to 10 minutes today to help keep us on track.
Yes, ma'am.
The floor is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me? And if you're hearing cries in the background,
Yes.
that's my 4-year-old, and we're just gonna have to deal with it. He's here with me at Three Rivers. Fun times. I was here today at Three Rivers to continue my across the state town halls regarding the biannual budget, and the Three Rivers community was gracious with giving me the time and the platform, but also, you know, they were direct and did not mince words in terms of their concerns or questions, not only regarding the budget, but the merger and many of the sentiments have been echoed by our colleagues or faculty or staff or leaders across the state for years. So I continue to support not only that dialogue, but that counsel to help us kind of steer this ship in the right direction. Regarding the biannual budget, yeah, I think this has been discussed ad nauseum across the board, but obviously our people are concerned. Our staff or faculty, our student, staff, faculty, and students have advocated across the state to our elected officials and also to administration, to our system office, the board members regarding what needs to be done, and that the investment in us is not simply political, but it's a lifeline in terms of the needs of our students, our services, our campuses, the resources our faculty and staff need to uphold the integrity of their instruction, the holistic nature of our services, and ultimately just the stability of what we feel is top-notch education here in the state of Connecticut. So again, I thank everyone who's been vocal, both locally and publicly, at the state capitol, at the legislative office building, and everywhere else. I want to shift to a couple of things. I know I don't have a lot of time. There's been a litany of concerns shared with me from a BOR level, from FAC to campus levels regarding degree works, from legacy to CT State, and also the class schedule for fall, and a lot of other things that are beginning to amp up as it relates to fall of 23, but also the summer. So I want to make it clear, we are prioritizing, you know, teaching and learning, student support services, public safety, physical plants, NIT, and DEI. And though there is a modified hiring process, you know, when there are needs of our courses as it relates to lab assistance or to tutoring, those are things that we're going to prioritize. As it relates to degree works, we're working on that, and it's been driven by the input has been provided by our people regarding the disparities in terms of what students are losing when they go from their legacy degree into the CT degree. And we are committed to holding our students harmless. Therefore, we will make the necessary changes. We will support the course substitutions and do whatever else is necessary to make sure that our students are good to go, but also recognizing that our faculty and staff are frustrated. So we've been deploying CT State leadership to the campuses to sit down with faculty and staff and leaders to not only help us better understand what needs to be done, but ensure that they feel like they have the support centrally. In terms of governance, you know, the College Senate's president has been direct in terms of the concerns regarding elected governance officials not feeling the support from either an AR or a compensation or just a supervisory standpoint as it relates to fully participating and being active in the college senate. And I want to make it clear that's something that I fully support and we have to fully support. So what would help me, though we have shared with Professor Vandermark the specific guidance and communication that was shared to campuses, what would help my office are the specific instances, specific campuses, the leaders, whomever, that are standing in the way from governance officials to participate. Like, that's helpful because that allows my office to pounce on those specific situations to say, cut it out and support these individuals. So that's just my ask of this group, so we can be swift, in addressing this matter and make sure that our folks don't feel that they're being undermined or that their time is being wasted in terms of trusting in this process of stand-up governance, but now they feel that they're handcuffed and they can't fully participate. So I just want to make that clear coming from me. Like, this is a college need. This is a statewide college mechanism, and I and CT State Administration fully support it. If there are actors that are not doing that, I need to know those names. Like, I love me some names so I can literally drive to the location and say, what the bleep's going on? Let's land this goddamn plane. So I just want to make that clear to everyone, because I don't want to feel like people are being undercut when it comes to something that's very serious. And I recognize all the hours that all of you are putting into this. So please give me those names. It doesn't have to be in this forum, but obviously offline, and then we will address it and also circle back with the leadership of this body to make sure that you know where we stand and that we're good to go. So I just want to put that out there. And then lastly, with the remaining minutes that I have, we are finalizing the third and last NECHI report as it relates to our progress report. Our report's due by June 1 to NECHI in terms of the final determination of receiving initial institutional accreditation from the commission. And a lot of work's gone into that. There's obviously a public comment portion that I support. I support people. This is America. Speak your truth. However direct that needs to be, and give us the opportunity to address it. But there's been questions. There's been questions surrounding the budget and surrounding everything else about the likelihood of CT State receiving accreditation. And my response has been, I am confident that we'll receive accreditation, but there's going to be a lot of strings attached. But ultimately, it's in the hands of the commission. Like that's how it works. And I trust them to make the best decision possible, but also to hold us accountable in terms of any concerns that have been voiced, from our constituents across the 12 legacy community colleges. So I want to make that clear. There are a lot of things that we have to fix, a lot of things that we have to address, but together, that's the only way we're going to get through this. And I really appreciate the advocacy and work not only you, but your colleagues across the state have exhibited. The honesty they've shared with me, even when it's littered with F-bombs, but damn it, that's their truth. Because it helps me better understand and address the gaps and the omission that continue to harm our people, to traumatize our people. And at the end of the day, the conditions and the environment for all of you, all of our employees, all of our students have to be conducive as it relates to a comprehensive community college. And I am committed to that as long as y'all have me here. So I will end my comments there. Professor Vandermark, and if people have questions for me, they're free to ask, or as always, you can always reach out to me directly.
Thank you, Dr. Maduco. We have about 2 minutes remaining, so we'll take questions for just under 2 minutes. Hannah.
I just want to know if there has been any explicit exchange with NECHI about this budget crisis, or whether this is all going to be in the report.
Great question. That's probably the best question I've received so far today, and it's 12:20. It's going to be both, right? So we will include it in our report. Specifically in our report, we are making references to the fact that the budget is not really going to be finalized from a state standpoint until June 7th, but we will provide updates. Specifically when the budget lands and CSCU determines basically what's our cut in terms of the block grant and everything else. And then 2, I plan to meet with NETCHI's president, Dr. Shaw and Dr. O'Brien, within the week with our CFO, Carrie Kelly, just to kind of, directly let them know what's going on between the state budget, but also what we're doing from a budget mitigation standpoint. So neither them or NETCHI or the commissioners that are reviewing our candidacy for accreditation don't feel like they're being blindsided in terms of some of the volatility that's taking place here in Connecticut.
Roberta.
Morning. Thank you, Dr. Maduka, and thank you, Al, for calling on me. Forgive me, my allergies have blown up this week, so it's hard to hear me. I appreciate you commenting about how you and your team are looking at minimizing the negative impact on our students. I know we all are committed to that, but I feel like we've already missed that boat in many situations, Dr. Maduka. Every single day the catalog is changing. Information is coming out or not coming out in a timely manner. I'm advising the same students week after week after week, one change after another. I feel like a fool. I've been doing this a long time. And I mean, I'm very fortunate. I've had students that are just grateful that I'm reaching out to them and trying to help them. But then we have other students who are just furious and fed up. And some of the late changes and the new implementation of CPAS, all these different issues are mounting up. And I really fear how it's going to impact our retention and how it's going to impact our students' decisions to even return in the coming semesters. I know we're going to talk a little bit about that later on, but that's a concern for me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. We have run out of time on this issue, but it is later on the agenda, so I hope that we are able to address it in more detail. Okay. Thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Kalina Sasanker. She is chair of the Faculty Advisory Committee to the Board of Regents of Higher Education. Dr. Sasanker, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. I feel so formal. So hi all. I will try to be really quick. And what I think I was invited to do and what I'll focus on is really just giving a high level analysis of what we see going on, both budget-wise and legislatively, because it's an interesting session that has taken everybody by surprise. I think we've all been in a position where we're like, oh yeah, layoffs, that again, budget crisis, that again, and then it all gets solved in the end. This is not that year. Things are very different this year. And a lot of people feel very out of their depth at the Capitol. So I'm gonna focus on what the system's public narrative about our shortfall is. It is not my analysis of the situation, but that's beside the point, right? I just want to talk about what the system is saying is going on. And it is that we have a $335 million deficit over the next biennium, right? 109 million in year one, 225 in year two. The Connecticut state deficit portion of that, so just for the community college, 95 million of that first year's deficit, fiscal year 24 begins on July 1st, right? 95 million of that is attributed to just the community colleges. That's 88% of that first year's deficit. The system reserves are 329 million. Remember that number because it is lower than the 2-year deficit. And the CT state reserves, and this is all just from system documents here and there, right, are expected to be 106 million in July, which again is just about 10 million above the CT state deficit. So, as you know, the governor's budget only left like 57 million above, and that deficit is what is expected if the governor's budget went through, right? There is not a lot of hope that we're getting a hell of a lot more money from the legislature. What we're hearing right now is a very small amount. And while there are possibilities of like adjusting it in the midterm, there is a lot of aggression towards our system right now. So it's possible that it can go in the opposite direction. So, whether or not, I don't think there's any appetite for revenue intercepts, but there is an appetite for adding more money to the state budget, but very specifically, not really for us. So, there is an issue there, and the source of the issue I'm going to speculate on a little bit. It's just my opinion, but here are the elements, because I think this is important to us. We're about to open a college. We're about to begin a venture. And what we are hearing very clearly from the state is that they have absolutely no interest in investing in us, and possibly an interest in reducing us significantly. If any of you have read OPM's response to the system's, announcement of this crisis on April 24th, they were unapologetic about the possibility of layoffs if they exist. The governor, same thing. But what I also have heard, if any of you heard that conversation between the governor and the PAS, I guess I'll call them like the governor does at Real Artways, is that the governor's really proud, apparently, of the community colleges, even if he doesn't know how many we are or what we're called. He's really invested, and has been for a long time, in us serving his workforce needs, though it's not clear that he understands what we need to be able to have, the capacity we need to be able to have to do that. He's very interested in short-term certificate programs and night classes for working students, and he definitely wants savings and efficiencies. And he's also seems to have some hurt feelings about the idea that he has left us in the lurch, because his version of the story is that he's given us more than anyone ever has. That's his version of the story. So there's a huge mismatch between what the system is saying and what the governor believes is true, right? Now, here are the reasons I am concerned. Whatever the reason, the narrative that has been built, if you want to talk layoffs, there has been lots of conversation about layoffs. And again, the projected deficit for the system is larger than our reserves. The projected deficit for CT State is within $10 million of our reserves. And that projected deficit is for the first year only. If you listen to the finance and infrastructure meeting of the BOR last week, there was some conversation about exactly how long it takes to get people off of payroll, not maliciously. There is no stated desire from the system office to do this. This is just what are the facts. And the fact is that if you want people off of payroll 2 years from now, you got to start now. So there's a lot of damage that can get done in the short term. And I wish I could tell you what the narrative was that you could bring to your legislator, but there's a lot of crosstalk. And I think we don't want to risk crosstalk because the system needs money. I will tell you now, I know that we have a deficit. The problem is I don't think that it is exactly the number or exactly the narrative that has been given. And I think that gap in credibility is what is putting us in this position. So as the Senate of the Consolidated College, I want to make sure that I communicate to you the situation that I believe that we are in, because remember, there's a lot of investment in this consolidation. What the consolidation gets us is a structure that makes it possible that not every location needs to meet the full standards of accreditation anymore. And it's one that centralizes executive decision-making. I'm not saying that to disparage the consolidation, but saying that to shed some light on perhaps what the motivations of some of the people who have pushed us in this direction over the past 5 years may have been, and why they think they might be scheduled for a payoff in fiscal year 25. I think that one of the reasons that the governor's story and the system story is not adding up is that there's a gap there. And it is the gap of what does it cost to create the 5th largest community college in the country? That was never budgeted. There was never any appropriations requested from the state for that. And the cost of that has never been disclosed. And as long as that gap in the story exists, that gap in credibility is going to continue to exist. I wish we could tell the full story. I don't know why we haven't told the full story. We have a brand new administration that can easily just say, those past folks, I don't know what the heck they were doing. You don't budget $0.00. No, sorry, I'm mistaken. About $1.5 million for an undertaking this big. Just the money to float us into transitioning in this first year should be more than that. And if you just think about the fact that just the labor cost of negotiating all the changes in job classifications that are necessary because of this consolidation will be I'm sure, in the millions of dollars, right? So I think it's important to realize that, that when we're trying to understand why there is such intransigence from the governor and why he will not believe our story, we have had an administration for a very long time who has been very clearly saying, just hold us down. We'll give you the savings in 25. It's about to be 25. And
Paulina, if you could
and
start to wrap things up.
that is, I think the majority of the story, I just want us to understand that this crisis is real and Students First is exactly on track in terms of the original design of it, because it did not have this money budgeted in. And if it didn't have this money budgeted in, it had to come from somewhere. So I hope that that is helpful. I would love to say this is what we could do to get the money. I don't yet know because we have to tell the whole story.
Colleen, if we need to come back into session this summer, would you be willing to participate in that meeting with us?
Absolutely.
Very good. Thank you. In the spirit of keeping things on track, folks, we are going to move along to the return of the IRB folks with Dean DiMatteo and Sohair Omar. But remember, at the end of this meeting, I will be asking you to vote to return this summer if necessary to address this situation. So with that said, Dean DiMatteo, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you all very much for allowing us back in to report back and give you a little update about our progress thus far. So I'm sharing my screen now. And again, just to remind you, our Institutional Review Board work group, we were with you in March 22nd and gave you a preliminary snapshot. Both myself and Sohair are returning here today. Again, as part of our work team worked to develop the documents that we shared with you prior to today, we referenced many of the federal regulations and adopted some of the best practices that are necessary for an IRB. Again, we talked a little bit last time about the 2018 Common Rule and what was entailed with their guidelines there. But then what we've also been researching heavily on, and many of our points in the documents we shared reference is what's coming out of UConn's Human Research Protection Program, the Mayo Clinic's Office of Human Research, to name a few. Again, we also reference some of our other colleagues in the new system. So again, Naugatuck Valley's Community College's IRB documents, as well as Manchester Community College's IRB procedures. So again, to recognize that many of the things that you're seeing came from other sources. So Sohair, I'm going to pass it to you.
Thank you, Dean DiMatteo. Good afternoon, Madam President, CT State Senators and guests, including Dr. Maduco. Since we last met, we have been working hard on developing the main documents of the CT State IRB. Again, based on federal regulations, best practices, and our experience. They include the CT State IRB policies and procedures, the CT State IRB application, and the CT State IRB informed consent form. Specifically, the CT State IRB policies and procedures comprise the purpose and charge, membership criteria, the members and the chairperson's responsibilities, the role of consultants, should they be called upon, functions and operations, the review process, including levels of review of qualifying proposals, including exempt, limited, and full review, informed consent, and reporting adverse events, meetings, records retention, which is prescribed by federal regulations. Now, we may change the formatting and the layout, but the substance is there. We want this to be a collaborative process in which you have the opportunity to review and comment. So if you'd like to ask questions or make suggestions, you can do that now, or you can send them to me and Dean DiMatteo later via email.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, O'Hara. And exactly that. We welcome feedback. That's the purpose for today. But again, in terms of our next steps, recognize first that these documents had already been shared with the local IRBs for comment. And so each of those campus representatives had a chance to exchange feedback with us, and recognize that that's been integrated into the documents that you have in front of you. Again, our next steps will be to assemble IRB decisions from the past so that we have a running record of what was the former 12 colleges and what are now the CT state. We will be going about recruiting our IRB members and making sure that all of the membership follows through with the NIH and the PHRP training protocols. Again, we will be filing then formally with the federal government such that we achieve the OHRP and FWA assurances. And then at that point, we want to ensure that there's no conflict of interest between what is a old policy from a campus perspective and what is now the new CT state. So I welcome questions or feedback.
Are there any questions? Okay, very good. Thank you both for attending. And if we receive any questions, we will forward them to you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, very good. Thank you. So next on our agenda is the subcommittee reports. First up is our part-time membership in College Senate Subcommittee. Ariel, I believe you are presenting today.
That is correct. Can everyone hear me well? Oh, well, thank you for everyone. I appreciate you all. I'm just going to go ahead and get started. The subcommittee is sharing this resolution for support in part-time representation. The CT State College Senate is tasked with discussing this issue that impacts the entire college system. Part-time staff and instructors are a critical part of supporting our educational mission of providing quality and equitable education to our students. Part-time staff and instructors have a unique voice due to their position. We resolved that due to this, they should have a voice on the CT College Senate. This was prepared on the 16th.
And Ariel, that is the same resolution that I shared in the informational email. Is that correct?
Correct.
And are you asking for a motion?
Yes, at this
Are
point.
you making a motion?
Or rather,
I should-
thank you. I don't know Robert rule too much. I am making a motion to the acceptance of this, yes.
Is there a second? Peter Astor seconds. Any debate?
Elle, can we hold on a second? So what is the actual motion name for the minutes? A motion to what?
Motion to add part-time membership.
Okay. Part-time membership to the CT State College Senate.
Correct.
Cool. Thank you.
Hannah.
Do we have any thoughts on what exactly that would look like? We did have a similar motion at NCC. Would we have one per college? Would we have one per region? How would they be selected? Is there any more thought on this process?
I do have a draft here regarding part-time representation. It is a draft, of course, so we would be missing on how they would be selected, but I do have some additional information with regards to that. So that if I'm allowed to read it out, it may answer some questions.
If you could specifically address how many and how they would be elected. I think those were the issues that were raised.
So let me put here, we will be looking at two full-time.
Two part-time?
I'm sorry, excuse me. Two part-time, one representing faculty, the other one representing staff. How would they, I'm looking here in my notes, I'm not necessarily seeing how they would be selected, so I don't have an answer for that at this time.
Alan and then Peter.
Angelo has his hand first.
Oh,
Yeah, very quickly.
apologies.
Last time we were here, Mia brought up the issue about dual employment. Was that issue dealt with by you guys?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Al, I don't know if I'm able to jump in on that or if Peter, or
Go
anybody
ahead
who
and
was on the
respond.
committee who to address this. I'm more than happy to stand by if Peter can jump in on that. We did discuss the dual enrollment and also how we would go about selecting.
Employment, dual employment.
Peter, you're on mute.
Okay. We discussed this at length in terms of how these senators would be elected. It would be from amongst all the part-time individuals in each category throughout the system. It would be nominations taking in a system-wide vote. The actual electronic details, I do not know. I assume it would be a Survey Monkey. The regarding dual employment, I think what you're referring to is the idea that you have full-timers at one campus, perhaps teaching or working at another campus. And if anyone's employed full-time, they're not eligible in any of the campuses. They're not eligible for one of these positions. So this is really designed for part-time people.
No, I didn't mean that. I think Mia mentioned that if a part-timer is teaching 2 courses already
Yes.
in a semester, and also, right, Mia, if I hope I'm quoting you correctly, and the part-timer also, on top of those 2 courses, is a Senate, it gets paid for the Senate. That's actually going to be contractually at this time, I think, not included. So are these part-timers going to get paid? And if they're going to get
Angelo?
paid, then
Angelo,
how-
we did raise the issue of dual employment, and there would be a limitation imposed so that an individual who ran and was elected would not be able to breach the threshold. That was the discussion.
Okay, I didn't know that. Good. All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
That was. And now, Alan, I believe you were next. And
Nicola?
Peter Bennett, did you put your hand down?
Yes. I'm finished for the moment.
Okay, thank you, Peter Astor. Go ahead,
Al,
Alan.
thank you, but I think my comments have already been covered. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, sir. Miguel.
Yeah, just to touch on Angelo's question. There is a possibility that we could also consider in terms of deferred compensation, whereby you might push it to the summer, for example, because I would be concerned about disenfranchising anybody who is at the 17 credit or two course mark simply because they're teaching 2 courses at 17 hours. So I think that while, yes, we want to make sure that, well, I shouldn't say we want to make sure. We
Miguel?
need to ensure, yeah.
We can address this under the charter piece if this advances, but.
No, but I'm answering Angelo's questions, Al, because I want to make sure that I just the one point of, there is a possibility also in terms of deferred compensation. That's my point.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions before we vote?
Nicola has her hand up.
How am I not seeing hands? Nick?
Yes, it's okay. My one question, I guess this would also go to the people that are serving on the charter. The last I served with you guys on the charter, we were talking about when we would be able to open up the charter for modification. I don't know where that has gotten or where that has ended, but to change the composition, we would then have to go in and change this charter. And that, as far as I believe, that would have to go to all of Connecticut State in to vote and then pass. And in order to open up this charter for revision, I think a certain percentage. Again, I don't know where the the bylaws committee has landed on that. But I just want to make sure everyone is aware of that piece of the puzzle also.
But Nick, on the issue of the charter, we have yet to accept it, which is why we structured the agenda the way we did.
But the charter came down from Connecticut State, right? So I think that might be.
We aren't in conflict until after the charter has been accepted.
Okay.
Are you talking about the charge or the charter?
The charter that laid out the composition of Connecticut State. I'm not sure. I can't remember if the composition's in the charter.
It's not in the, it's not in the charge. It's in the charter, which we have not accepted.
Right.
Okay.
And so we need to accept the charter, and that's the reason why we bring it up now before we accept it. But it's not, the body itself is not in the charge. And we needed to create that first.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further debate? Thank you. All those in favor of adopting the motion to add part-time membership to Connecticut State Senate?
I'm sorry, Elle, I'm so sorry. I know I'm interrupting your process, but I just went out and looked online and the membership of the body is in the charge. I apologize for interrupting, but I was trying to do some fast email looking. It's posted on the website.
John, how many yeses do we have?
Well, we had a bunch of folks take their hands off after that information from Maya, so they're adding them.
We're not voting yet.
We are voting. We are voting on the resolution presented by Ariel Robinson.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Only senators can vote, right?
Yes, and we have taken steps
Thank you.
to ensure that. John, how many yes?
It keeps growing. Hold on. I have 26 at the moment.
26 yes. Okay, folks, please lower your hands. Jennifer, thank you. All those voting against the the resolution, please raise your hand. All those voting against the resolution?
We have 4 against.
We have 4 against. We have 26 for the those abstaining. Are there any abstentions? One abstention. The motion carries.
Now,
Next,
I do have the charger in front and it does have the membership body on it. So I apologize for that. And if we need to review it, it's here. But it's
Okay,
also
thank
in the charger too, which is why I thought it was there.
It's in both locations. I suspected that was the case, but I was not quick enough to get both of those documents up. Sarah Perez, are you here? Very good. Next on our agenda is presenting the charter. And Sarah, the floor is yours.
Right. So I wanted to first start by thanking the subcommittee members on the bylaws subcommittee. We have literally worked on this document since our first College Senate meeting. We've met weekly on Fridays to really for hours and splitting the groups some Fridays between 2-hour time blocks and 2-hour time blocks to really try to make sure we capture as many voices and eyes on the document. So I really want to say thank you to my subcommittee members. we have painstakingly, we've took one of the templates, I believe it was the Three Rivers template. And so what we did was we started to go through from the top, and I'll share the document with everyone. We started to go through from top to bottom, looking at language, looking at implications. How does this affect? If we trying to make it, if this makes sense, as general and as specific as possible so that we can stay on track, give us some flexibility, but also kind of know where our boundaries are. I'm going to share the document now. Let's see. So I'm going to just see. I believe this was sent out to everybody via email, and you can see the link to go onto our SharePoint to view it. It includes our name, our charge, our membership currently, without the part-time piece in it. We included language around the terms. We also talked about one of the biggest things that you'll see in here is when we're electing executive council, or when we're electing the new Senate body. So when we have to go through elections, holding those elections in May of that prior year. So that way, starting September, the new college Senate is ready to go. And that was something we really went back and forth on. What makes sense? How do we keep the integrity of the group and help the new group move forward and be prepared for that September start? We also, if you go through the document, we also really talked about what the role of the president, vice president of faculty, and vice president of staff are, the secretary positions, how to submit agenda items, time frame for agenda items, voting and resolution. We also have discussions in here around minutes, guest presenters, if need be, executive sessions. And also subcommittee meetings and forming them as needed and when we need to do them. Are there any questions that either myself or the group, because we had a lot of eyes on this, just do people have any questions for us?
Go ahead, Kristen.
Hi, I have a quick question. Under section 8 for meetings, I had a chance to look this over before we met, and just for clarification on letter E, guests, does that statement, guests may attend as non-participating members of Senate meetings unless called upon by the presiding officer, mean that if they are called upon by the presiding officer, then they are considered participating? Just looking for clarification.
My
This was more-
understanding, my understanding of that, Kristen, because we talked about it at length, is that ordinarily in an effort to be transparent, anyone can attend a Senate meeting, but only if recognized by the chair would they be able to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Did I share that consistently with the, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Stephen?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I don't know if I'm proposing this in the most dire need, but I was thinking of our Senate system as being well-rounded so that we have a lot of good representation from the departments that we have. I am thinking of like the guided pathway advisors in our new system, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's only Brian and I that are guided pathway advisors here, but even just as a whole, I was wondering if maybe there was some flexibility in having some number of professional advising in here in terms of what staff is there, because I think it'd be such a shame with such a heavy investment and student facing group to not have any representation if like we weren't reelected or there wasn't something there that had that body.
So we've talked about different roles, different people, different groups, because so in under the organization, and I'll have someone else jump in as well. So campuses and different groups can also get elected as at-large membership. So that also offers opportunity for two advisors, let's say from a campus. It doesn't limit it to a specific area. I don't know if anyone else wanted to jump in.
I'll just add, Sarah, that there are other senators, Stephen, who are GPAs right now.
Yeah, and I would just add that,
Hold on just a second, Miguel. I need to make sure we're operating in order. John, who was next?
Nicola.
Nicola?
Real quick, I don't see anything, I went through this quickly. I didn't see anything in here about the ability to maintain, the ability to revise this. I remember seeing it somewhere at some point in time that we had to look at it after like the first 2 years and then 5 years thereafter, but I did not see it in this particular version. And maybe it was in another area, but did I miss that, or is that something that we should talk about adding?
I can speak to that if you'd like, Al.
Thank you, Roberta.
Nicholas, so one of the general provisions is interpretation of our bylaws is that anything not addressed within this document would follow Robert's Rules of Order and the most current edition of parliamentary authority, which allows for an amendment to the bylaws as needed upon review, etc. So, for example, if we were to accept this document today, let's say, at our first fall meeting, the bylaws committee could present amendments that would address the part-time representation. At the following meeting, it could then be voted on, and we would be following parliamentary law without a problem, and we're all good to go at that point.
Thank you, Roberta.
Certainly.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think that it is, I don't want to say appropriate because that's not the right word, but right, like then it would only be this body then that would be able to make changes to this document. Am I interpreting that correctly? So it wouldn't be able to go out to the entire Connecticut state for a vote if we decided to change something within this document?
You want me to?
Yes, please,
Al,
Roberta.
if you want to add to it, we could certainly do some additional outreach and sharing of information as the senators. Once that information is put out there at that first meeting, then we would bring it back to our own campuses for their feedback and then come forward and have the vote at the subsequent meeting. I think there's ample opportunity for that, and we don't necessarily have to discuss it at just one meeting, prior to a vote, but we do need to give proper notice.
The thing that I would add to that is once our website is up and operational, the charter will be there, and that any individual, my apologies, any individual could approach their senator to petition a change. So the community at large still has access to participation in any revision through their senators. And I do think that having the web page is going to significantly broaden and increase our transparency. Miguel.
thanks. I would just to Stephen's point, I was just gonna chime in that I would be concerned about doing carve-outs for specific positions and groups. Because then what's to prevent financial aid from saying there should be a financial aid person or library or admissions or whatever it might be. So I don't, I mean, I understand your concern. I think we see from the chat, the GPAs are well represented here. And there are numerous opportunities for GPAs to serve as they are, which is fine. So I don't think that that's going to be a problem.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the charter as presented?
Michael has his hand raised.
Mike.
Thank you. I appreciate, as a guest, being able to speak here. I wanted to just address the carve-out notion that Miguel just spoke of and give a little history that we did talk about that. Remember, these initial membership lists came from a proposal of the entire governance model, both Curriculum Congress and College Senate and local senates. One of the difficulties, if you entertain designations or carve-outs, is in the Senate model, there are 3 representatives from each campus, a faculty, a CCP, and an at-large. If you start entertaining kind of the carve-out, if you say, well, so many of those have to be a GPA, if you have a GPA elected at Manchester, then that might mean a GPA can't be eligible at another campus. Logistically, it's very hard. And we did not get a lot of feedback when we shared the model for campus feedback and we went around to campuses that there should be segmented groups, whether it be counselors, librarians, advisors, it would seem like CCP and at-large would include that. To the point of revising it to Nick's point, I do think it might be helpful to think of the governance model as a whole and think of any changes to any body within the model. I thought there was a really good model at Manchester when I worked there. There are 3 bodies. There's an academic senate,
Mike, I'm going to go ahead and interrupt you so that we can continue to make progress. I appreciate the input, but we are on a very tight schedule today.
If I could just finish my comment, I think it might be helpful to have the other bodies weigh in on changes to any item in the model. And that's been proven very helpful in the past. So thank you, Elle.
Thank you. Any further comments? Roberta, you're on mute.
I apologize. Someone was mowing the lawn, not me. I would like to move that we accept the bylaws with the understanding that amendments will be made as needed.
I'll second that.
The motion was made by Roberta and second by Peter. Hannah, are you voting on the amendment or do you have a question or comment?
Both. I'm voting on the amendment. I can wait with my question till we're done.
Well, we're taking any further debate now before we vote. So go ahead.
I just wanted to say, and please take this with all due respect, I know we're under time crunch and we just went over for an hour and a half with another committee, but I think sometimes the questions or comments are longer. Also, I felt a little bit pressured before when we were talking with President Meduco, who we do not always have. So I would just request that we maybe leave enough time for people to say something, even if it takes a little bit longer, if possible. And I say that with great respect.
I understand. And one of the things I will be asking you to do today is actually extend our meeting time so that we can do that. Alan?
You got it.
Thanks, Elle. So I was on the committee. I wasn't able to attend all of the meetings, but was at, I think, our final meeting. I feel really good about this model. I guess, so I have a question. We passed the resolution regarding part-time representation, but my understanding is that because it was the charge that we received initially from Connecticut State did not include that we'll need to consult with Connecticut State before adding that. Is that correct?
I think at this point, our way forward, Ellen, is to request a change to the charge. And upon approval, at a fall meeting, we would then revise the charter to be consistent. Yes, sir.
Okay, just wanted to be clear on that. So that we have voted in support of that concept. Okay, but it's not currently, it won't be added today. All right, so
Correct.
yeah, I think that this was, we've carved out issues around quorum, about proxies, about guests speaking, being limited to specific agenda items. I think we've covered a lot of territory, so I would definitely encourage my colleagues to vote in support.
Thank you. Are there any further questions before we move to voting? Very good. All those in favor of adopting the charter as presented and shared, please raise your hands now. All those in favor, please raise your hand. John, if I'm not mistaken, we have 100% participation.
I count 32, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, hold on, it's changing.
Norley.
Hold on, it's changing. 31.
So we have 31 in favor. Very good. I'll take your hands down, please. Please lower your hands. Kirsten? Can I lower a hand? Very good. Thank you. All those opposing adoption of the charter, please raise your hand. Opposition, please raise your hand. No opposition. Abstentions? Any abstentions? The charter is adopted without objection. Congratulations, and thank you very much to both of our subcommittees who did an incredible job of being thoughtful about this work. We are indebted to you. Next on our agenda is a report from the Connecticut State Curriculum Congress. Under that standing item, Nicola, you have would like to bring to our attention an issue. You're on mute.
My mouse, my cursor can't be found sometimes. I don't know why. I can't give a report, a standing report on the curriculum committee. I don't know if you want to call on Miguel or the other person who serves on that. Their name escapes me right now. And then I can speak after that.
We keep this as a standing item on the agenda, and you actually had a report, so the floor is yours for now. If someone else would like to join after you, then we will open the floor for that.
Okay. I just wanted to bring to this body's attention a what seems like on a very topical, looking at it very cursorily, that it's not a very big deal, but Curriculum Congress made a change to a degree unilaterally. The proper process as laid out should have been that an edit that was being recommended should have been sent back to the SACC for the revision and then returned to the Curricular Congress. I'm concerned that this may set a dangerous precedent where Congress feels that it can continue to make changes unilaterally without referring documents or degrees back to the SACC. Kalina, Elle, do you want me to call on when I see hands, or do you want to?
Yeah, no, go ahead for this item.
Okay.
Was that me?
Lena, your hand up?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
So I just wanted to clarify. So the, I don't know whether you all have passed bylaws yet, or when so the process to which you're referring is the one that was described in the original founding of the, okay. Okay, that's all I want to ask for now. Thanks.
And
Have
thank
you
you.
passed
And
bylaws yet?
Congress, I do not know. I'm not
Oh,
on
you're not
Congress.
on it. Okay, sorry.
No, this was brought to my attention by an SACC chair that was at the meeting. And also one of the things that I cannot find minutes. I cannot find agendas for Curriculum Congress. Maybe but I cannot find minutes at all. And so it's very difficult to find out what's being done in that committee right now.
And I will share with
Hannah.
Senate that we have, reached out and asked Connecticut State leadership to share with us once their elections in Curriculum Congress are administered so that we can begin to partner there. Hannah?
Yeah, I think this has actually been thematic in that body. We are all struggling, I think, with curriculum moving up, back, down, reviewing where the documents are sitting and so on and so forth. I can assure you that there are agendas and minutes kept. We can, I don't know, Mike is here. You hold the master key to many things. If you can maybe comment on how we can best make them accessible to the Senate members, but I just want to assure you that there is a very regular process there. And I would like to ask if you could maybe clarify the details. I'm not sure if I caught exactly what happened there, but definitely
Yes.
something that we wanted
was-
to be very clear about.
Yeah, Hannah, I'd be happy to. It was a early childhood education degree, and in the actual degree, it basically said that U.S. History 1 was the only course that would satisfy the history requirements. And Curriculum Congress debated and said that it could be U.S. History 1 or U.S. History 2. And they added that to and again, like I said, this was minor. This was not anything that I think has any super repercussions. It was more the precedent that it set that just made me a little concerned, because the process that is laid out was not being followed.
Yeah, I see Mike hands here before my answer, but maybe we should hear what Mike has to say.
Thank you, Hannah, but we're going to take questions and comments from senators first. Thank you. Mike, I see your hand and I will come to you when senators have raised their concerns. Alan.
Thanks, Al. I think you maybe know what I'm going to say. There is no U.S. History 1 anymore, or U.S. History 2. Those courses have been renamed. And U.S. History 2 Reconstruction and since Reconstruction, or something to that effect. So that there's not a sense that there's a U.S. 1 is required before U.S. 2, or what traditionally were understood as those courses. So those have been renamed, and that maybe highlights the need for this to go through the proper process. If that had come from the SDC for Social and Behavioral Sciences, they would have known the proper course titles to be used for that degree. So just want to highlight the fact that it's kind of complicating even more the issue by using the incorrect course title.
Thank you, Alan. Mike.
Thank you. President Meduco suggests that we speak our truth, so I'm just going to speak my truth. I'm feeling a little disrespected in this meeting after being cut off after only a few moments of sharing something. Having been in the system 27 years, I think I have value and experience to add related to governance. I've also been involved in many of these committees and can provide background. So it asks for some respect on that issue. I will share that I think the agenda, although it is approved, and I respect that, The comment that this is circumventing policy and practice. The curriculum process is not policy, it is practice and procedure. I'm not defending what happened, but I can explain what happened. And that is that the Curriculum Congress has been charged with reviewing curriculum. And if there are non-substantive changes, they can move that curriculum forward. I think what you may wish to ask Curriculum Congress or have them define is what is substantive. Is adding another option for a course out of in an elective substantive or not, and should that go back to the SAC? Having said that, I don't think that's defined. So I would argue that that was a judgment call on the Curriculum Congress's part. If you disagree with that, you may wish to share that with the Congress, but I do think it is a curriculum issue. I will also say that we do have elected representatives. Jason Seabury is our president. Christine Sherry is our vice president. We do have the minutes approved from last month and they will be posted. We also have the minutes, thank you, Hannah, for March. Those will be approved and posted. And we are putting those in the SharePoint along with our agendas and other items. So thank you for the time and I appreciate that.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. We're going to go ahead and move on to our old business items now. Our first item of old business is compensation and release, and we have an update from John and Nicola. John, I'll come to you first.
Sure. Just want to say thank you to all the folks that responded back. I heard from almost everyone. I appreciated your conversations and your time and context, understanding what you're working through. We had a mixed bag. We have some folks that have had compensation or release already provided, but the majority have not. Several of you told me that you were waiting to hear or from your supervisors as to what had been offered. Some of you mentioned that you were afraid to ask. And many of you mentioned that you understood that taking on this responsibility would include going above and beyond and didn't necessarily expect to hear back from supervisors. So there's been a bit of a disconnect between, I think, the understanding of whether or not compensation release is being provided or not, and who needs to start that conversation, whether it's a senator that needs to go and request it from their bosses, or whether or not administration needs to come in and let you know how they're providing it. But, you know, thanks to the comments that we heard today, I'm sure that we can address it offline and find a way that works best for everybody.
Nick, do you have anything to add to that?
Just that I think that all faculty should be aware that going forward, that per the Connecticut state, that all faculty are entitled to 1 credit of AR or release time for serving on this committee. And I would just ask that you please ensure that you are accounting for that in your annual AR reports, which are due anytime soon.
Thank you. Hannah?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's possible. It's entirely possible that I'm just really slow this morning because I am tired. But did we have a resolution for or some kind of solution for the previous item? Did I miss that, or do we have a plan how to resolve this issue, or did we just pass on to the next topic? In which case, I would suggest that we enter a path for a solution before we leave.
Alan?
Thanks, Al. Yeah, I guess I did want to look back at the previous issue, if we could, for a moment, regarding the Curriculum Congress. I believe that, you know, we as a Senate should have a say in procedures. It's not our job to approve curriculum, but we would have the right to address procedures if they are not properly followed. You know, perhaps the issue of this being a non-substantive change, maybe that's a valid point, but I think it's maybe worth discussion. So, thank you.
So let me ask this, is there a motion? Because what would return us to the topic is there a motion related to the agenda item of the Connecticut State Curriculum Congress?
I would maybe make a motion to clarify exactly how recommendations or if modifications are requested from a committee, from a later committee, that's not very clear, is it?
No.
Somebody help me out. How do we move recommendations to change a proposal that is brought forward back to the previous, or how are they processed? Can we say it like this?
I still don't know your motion, Hannah.
That's very.
I'm trying. I'm trying here.
All right. A motion to clarify the path, how curricular changes that are recommended by a committee in the curriculum process is moved forward. Is that simple enough?
How to clarify the path for how
modifications to proposals that come to a particular body are moved forward. Mike,
Brian, did you
please
get
jump
that?
in here. You're good with this. Can you help?
I have the motion is, and it's incomplete, but it is to clarify the path for how modifications to proposals that come to a body are moved forward. I'm afraid it is both incomplete and not specific enough to be actionable. We can probably get there, Hannah. I think I saw Miguel and then Alan.
Nicola, then Miguel.
Wait, hold on a second, Al. I'm trying to write this chaos down. So did we actually have a motion from you, Hannah, or was there a discussion of a motion?
It is still being refined,
Okay,
Brian,
so-
but what I've captured so far, I put in the chat for you, and I'm hoping that Nick,
see.
Alan, and Miguel will help us get there.
Okay, just trying to make sure we don't lose the whole narrative here in the minutes, so.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Nicola.
I'm pretty sure it's pretty spelled out already. Connecticut State has, submitted several different forms that I'm sure it was either Maya or Mike that probably drafted it, that very clearly delineates the process. I think it's that question of, when that substantive, what is considered a big enough edit that requires something to be then remanded back to the SACC. I think that's where the clarification needs to come from.
Miguel and then Alan.
So we have a motion on the floor. We have no second.
We don't have a motion yet, Miguel. Hannah acknowledged that we're
Okay.
kind of have something, but it hadn't taken shape yet.
Okay, are you looking for just to return? So I guess mine is a parliamentary inquiry then. Are you looking to simply return for a motion to return to suspend the agenda, return to debate on the previous agenda item? Is that what you're looking for?
No, we already did that. We actually finished the report on AR and just went back to the curriculum issue.
Oh, okay. So are we, okay, so are we in discussion or are you looking for, what are you looking for?
Hannah was looking for help refining the motion, and the motion that is in process
Got it.
is
So
a motion.
I have a potential motion that I think might work.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to say it's sort of going to be the sense of the Senate resolution, where I move that the Senate Senate leadership convey to the Curriculum Congress leadership concerns about the communication communication and processes between curricular levels and a lack of clarity thereof. So, and that needs a second.
Second.
Okay, hold on a second, Miguel. Layman's terms for the minutes. What are you motioning?
Hold on, I think I have it, Brian.
Okay.
The Senate leader conveyed to the Curriculum Congress leadership that concerns about communications and processes between curricular levels and a lack of clarity thereof. I missed something, Miguel.
No, I think you got it. I think you got it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that was seconded by Roberta, and just so, because I think okay, so there's a couple of points here. What I'm hearing from you, Nick, is that you had a concern expressed to you that the Congress went rogue and made a change. I was there, so just for the information is that there are three of us. It's Hannah, Mehrdad, and myself who are on the Congress. So I would encourage anybody, if you have specific questions between meetings or whatever, you can certainly reach out to any one of us in terms of the Congress, or obviously you can reach out to any member of the Congress for that matter. But in terms of the discussion, my recollection of it was that I believe the SAC chair was there. Or at least if not the SAC chair, the originator, or the SDC chair. And it was either an omission or it was not viewed as a substantive change. It was basically giving the students needed 3 credits of US history, and there was only one option listed, and so it was adding a second option. So it was enhancing the option. And I think it was not viewed as a substantive change. I'm just telling you what my perception is. So that was I think the collective judgment of the Congress at the time. I think the point of we probably do need better clarification on what is considered substantive and what is not, what is allowable. And I'll be frank, we are still trying to get our bylaws and procedures squared away. We are also constrained by the fact that we have over 100 curriculum proposals because of the reality of the tight timeline. And I'm not pointing finger, that's the reality. And we have issues we have things that we have to consider because they have a direct impact on students and completion of programs. So it's not smooth. I get it. It's frustrating for a lot of us. The debate isn't necessarily what we would like it to be in some cases. We're trying the best we can. And I'm not trying to fall on the sword here. I'm just trying to give you perspective on where we are. We have over 100 curriculum proposals. We are also slated to try to get in one more meeting. So if there is something which was egregious in the opinion of the Senate, that is something that certainly could be revisited if that's felt to be necessary. And if so, that could be a separate motion to say we would formally request that you reconsider this vote because of X, Y, and Z. So that's just a suggestion.
Thank you, Miguel. Alan and then Mark. Alan, did you put your hand down? I've lost you now.
Sorry, I just had to step away for a moment. I apologize. Really, yeah, I think Miguel addressed maybe his motion addresses. I was saying that we should express some concern or ask for clarification about the action that was taken, and I think we could do that directly, between leadership, and maybe report that back at the next meeting. So I do think that should come between leadership of the two bodies. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mark.
I am very happy to hear a report about what is happening at the Curriculum Congress, but I would let our esteemed colleagues at the Curriculum Congress handle their business so that we could move on with our own very busy agenda here. I don't know if it's necessary for us to make any formal statement that would head over there. If we start getting statements from the Curriculum Congress about our actions over here, how would we regard those opinions as well? So that's just my point on this. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion before we take a vote on the motion for Senate leadership to convey to Curriculum Congress leadership concerns about communication and process between curricular levels and a lack thereof. Kalina.
My apologies for speaking again as a guest, but I do think regarding the last comment, there's a question of what the scope of authority of this governance body is. And I know that in the org chart, there was a sort of strange setup that made both the Congress and the Senate go directly up without kind of interacting with each other. And this conversation suggests that that there are differences in opinion of how that should be. So I think that it's, you know, if the Senate governs, what does it govern? This is an academic institution, but if you cannot weigh in on processes of the academic content, that's an issue that I think should be revisited, especially when you see consequences for stuff like that. And that's just my thoughts, because I know that there has been a question about how that functions prior to this, and now it has arisen.
Thank you. Any further comment? Maya?
Yeah, I just want to point out, and I think you're all making very good points, the charge to the Curriculum Congress included a specific statement that says the Curriculum Congress shall develop mechanisms to provide periodic updates to the College Senate. So that is a charge, and I just want to point that out. Perhaps this body can ask them to clarify what that update process is, since that was a charge to Congress.
Thank you. Okay, folks, any further comments before we vote on this motion? Very good. All those in favor of the motion for Senate to reach out and discuss our concerns with leadership, please raise your hand now. All those in favor, please raise your hands now. John, please let us know the number of yays and when hands stop raising.
Uh, 22.
22 in favor. Thank you, sir. Everyone put your hands down. All those opposed, wait, there are still two hands. Hold on, folks. There are still two hands up. There we go. There we go. All those opposed to the motion, please raise your hand. All those opposed to the motion.
You have 3 opposed.
Very good. Put your hands down. Any abstentions?
You have 6 abstaining.
The motion, how many yeses were there, John?
There were
John?
22.
I dismissed it in my brain once I counted.
The vote was
motion-
22-3-6. We had a senator that I believe stepped out for
Thank you.
meeting.
Thank you. The motion carries. All right, folks. It is 1:34. I am hoping we can get through the first item of new business or of old business before we take our recess. And this is returning to the unfinished business from our agenda from 324 on Connecticut state policies. Mike Stefanowicz, I believe you are presenting in Amy's stead. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The first item on our agenda is semester versus credit, or semester and credit hour requirements. And some concerns were raised about that issue. What is the status of that item?
I believe that's being held. Let me just try, if I can, I can share the document unless someone else is sharing today.
Nope. Please do.
Excuse me. So this is the document that was brought from the, that was on the SharePoint. Amy posted it again in the last few days. So BOT item 3.33, if people can see that. There is a
Mike,
comment.
can you increase? There you go. Yeah.
There is a comment from Amy that we are going to hold on that policy for now, as we need to resolve several questions related to the CBA collective bargaining outline, how NECHI and others define the classroom. I think perhaps the issue is instructional minutes versus workload for faculty. And there's some issues there. So we're going to hold on that one, if that's okay with everybody.
Okay, so we're tabling.
We're tabling 3.33.
Okay, very good. Moving on to incomplete.
Thank you. 3.51, incomplete. I know that Senator Pryor had some concerns. Let me just see. I think this is updated to reflect the current practice. Let me just check my notes and see if I have anything else. So I think we were asking for a vote on this to reflect the current practice, which is in place.
And what was the response to the concern raised, Mike?
Mine wasn't.
I don't think there was a concern. I think Roberta may have posted what the current practice is. Is that correct, Roberta?
We had debated, Michael and Al, we had debated what was written and what current practice was. And we were addressing policy and procedure. So the piece that I took out was simply the policy. So my comment in the document on the right is just the policy piece based on our discussion.
Correct. Often, and especially with the universities, the Board of Regents does not get into procedure or practice. They simply get into policy. So I believe what we are voting on is what Roberta, well, let me just double check. I'm sorry. I just clicked in the wrong place. So Roberta, you were suggesting that we just vote on this language here, correct? So I guess I would ask for a motion on that. Someone in the bottom.
Roberta, can you make the motion so that it responds to the critique?
Yes, I can. I can't really read it though.
Sorry, I'll scroll over and do it. Yeah.
Thank you, sorry. Do you want the entire policy statement in the motion?
No, you can actually refer to your comment.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I move that we accept the incomplete policy revision to include statements indicated by myself in the updated policy document.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Very good. Thank you. All those in favor of accepting the motion as presented, please raise your hands. All those in favor of accepting the motion as presented. John, how many yeses?
29.
29. Please lower your hands. We have 29 yes. Please lower your hands. All those, oh, we have one left. Patrick, thank you, sir. All those opposing the motion? All those opposing the motion? No opposition. Any abstentions? The motion carries without objection. Moving on to 3.5.2 administrative transcript notations. Mike?
Thank you. So there are a few questions here. So and Amy clarified that really what's happening are two things. There were two policies relating to grades and notations. BOR 3.5.2, and revision of BOR 1.19. Much of this language talks about colleges plural. It needs to be updated, but there is a change, and this is what's suggested for BOR 119 with audits, changing audit language and specifically language around the campus dean of students or faculty, dean of academic affairs, or their designee. And I saw, Elle, you had some comments there as well.
That were further clarified.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yep. Is there a motion to accept administrative transcript notations as amended, as presented?
Motion to approve, Hannah.
Thank you, Hannah. Is there a second?
Second, Kirsten.
Thank you, Kirsten. Any further debate?
I have a question. And I think I've raised this before in other places, but we have here, the wording says by the campus dean of students and faculty. Some of the campuses are going to have a dean of students and a dean of faculty. Not everybody's going to have a campus dean of students and faculty. Is that a problem?
Mike, I think that question is to you, and Amy did acknowledge that would need to be updated. Okay, there we go.
So if we could entertain an amendment, we could add in campus dean of faculty, Connecticut State Dean, or their designee to the list. I know that's very small, Miguel. So I added in, because you're correct, some larger campuses will have just the dean of faculty, correct?
Right.
Correct.
If I may, in our previous votes, we agreed to refer to this position as the academic dean of, or the campus dean of faculty, and leave it at that.
The reason we did that was because a campus dean of faculty could be the combined dean or a singular dean. That's
Correct.
right. That's
Yeah,
right,
correct.
Roberta. That's what we did. And that took care of the problem.
It was lowercase.
So something like that, strike the campus dean of students and faculty and just add in campus dean of faculty, and it's
Correct.
lowercase, is that correct or no?
I think it was lowercase because it was, no, it should be uppercase, shouldn't it? Because it's a position.
It should be uppercase.
Yeah, it should be uppercase.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the campus is lowercase, but the dean of faculty is uppercase. Sorry, Mike.
And I don't believe the CT State Dean of Academic Affairs or their designee is appropriate there.
So I think I'm hearing a proposal to strike this language as well.
Correct. So it would just be the campus dean of faculty or their designee.
Just gonna highlight this so that we keep this.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
Brian, did those changes have an impact on the motion on the floor?
Everything has an impact on everything. So you had a motion to accept the notations as presented. That motion was seconded. Then during the discussion, there was proposed edits to the language within there. So we actually are still waiting on the original motion, which was as presented and was seconded.
Friendly, we
Yeah, so
need a friendly amendment
Yep.
to include as edited. Miguel?
Well, Roberta would need to accept it because she was the maker of the motion.
No, I was not.
No,
Oh, you made the motion.
I'll make a friendly amendment to add the modification.
Thank you.
And
Hold on one-
Kristen? Do you accept that
I
change?
second.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I have one additional question.
Okay.
Which is just in terms of the deletion of the CT State Dean of Academic Affairs. And I guess through the chair to Mike. Mike, do you know if that should be struck, or was there an expectation that it would go from the campus dean to the CT State dean? Like, was that an initial layer of review, or would that be handled at each campus? I just want to make sure we get it right.
I believe that would be handled at each campus. This
Okay,
seems
yeah,
like
that's
automating
fine,
and
that's fine.
repeating is a local campus issue, correct?
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure we had that right. Thank you.
So the motion before Senate is as edited, is on 3.52 as edited. All those in favor of the motion, please vote now. All those in favor of the motion. John?
29.
29 in favor. Go ahead and lower your hands. Norley and Sarah, your hands are still raised. Norley? Thank you. All those opposing the motion? All those opposing the motion? No opposition. Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you. Mike, the next item on the agenda is 5.3, student insurance. There was a clarification here that was coming back.
Yes, there was. Let me just scroll down to it. I apologize. Here we go. So Amy checked with Dr. Kalicki and Dean of Students Elise Mulvihill at Gateway. There was a change to have insurance cover student and student athletes participating in intercollegiate athletics, as well as club sports and co-curricular student organizations. So I think Roberta had suggested that language, and that is what is we're asking to update.
Thank you.
I think the main change is really from Board of Regents trustees to Board of Regents and the club sports piece, right?
On the co-curriculars, because of the danger and inherent risk that comes with some co-curricular activities,
Thank you. Sorry, I'll
Thank
say it again.
such as ski club, that sort of thing.
Is there a motion to accept 5.3 as revised?
This is Roberta. I move that we accept 5.3 as revised, and thank you.
Is there a second?
And a second.
Thank you. Any debate? All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those in favor? John?
28.
And that's still consistent because we do have one senator who had to step away for a minute. Go ahead and lower your hands. Felicia and Hannah? Thank you. All those, any opposed? Any opposed, please raise your hands. Any abstentions? The motion passes without objection at 28. The final item is English as a second language. Mike, what were the concerns brought forward?
The concerns brought forward were questions about, at our last meeting, if I'm remembering, about whether students should be able to get foreign language credit and also the intermediate and advanced levels. Just to clarify, at this point, all we are asking for is a name change in this policy. That I'm asking for, we're asking the body to consider it from Connecticut Community College System to Connecticut State Community College. I do think those other issues are worth discussion. I'm not sure if we're not asking for that discussion today. And I think that there's a lot that goes into that if we're talking about, taking away foreign language credit from ESL students when they've had it in the past. So really, right now, I would ask for a motion just to do a name change, and then we can investigate the other issues at a later date.
Thank you. Is there a motion related to accepting this item? Miguel.
Yeah, I'll move to accept the change as presented. I can't see the policy number.
3.37, I'll second.
3.37.
3.7.
This is Roberta, I'll second.
We have a motion. Oh,
No,
I'm sorry, Miguel.
I was in discussion, yeah. Just in terms of this, I'm kind of the one who was responsible for getting this off the rails last month by sort of asking the question about the foreign language credits. Since then, there has been a significant discussion between some of the ESL folks, specifically Hannah, and the Foreign Language Consortium. We are entering into a dialogue to sort of discuss the broader issues that were brought up last month. And the name change makes sense, and I think it should go through, so I support it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Alan?
Thank you. So we had somewhat of a substantive discussion and some disagreement. I'm glad that the two groups are talking. I would be interested to know what kind of progress. If I remember correctly, the issue is when it says, we're talking about 5 levels and it says intermediate and advanced, but then we found that it's just the top 2 levels. And it does seem to need some clarification. It's fine. I don't want to change what is happening in what has been happening in substance. I think the language needs to reflect what is happening. And right now the language is inexact and a little bit confusing, right? And so would there be an easy way to simply amend this language to reflect the realities on the ground?
May I respond to that? So we had a very positive and constructive meeting with the Foreign Language Consortium, and we were able to share a little bit where this is coming from, and we were beginning to compare the levels. I think one thing one has to keep in mind is that intermediate in ESL, ESOL, it's called now, is different and higher than in a number of foreign language courses, but we have not yet had the time to really match up the learning outcomes, which is what really needs to be done. Celeste had suggested that we really look at where the learning outcomes are congruent, or whether some of these courses should be humanities, elective, something. This is a longer discussion. I think right now the ask was to look at the name change and then revisit that. But I can say that the Foreign Language Consortium was in support of continuing and I think had a little bit of a better understanding why this policy was made, and also why ESL is a foreign language to those people that come here, because the concerns are exactly the same. Sort of the tasks for the brain are the same, right? You acquire vocabulary, you learn grammatical structures, you have to understand the social use of language, so pragmatics, all of those things on different levels. So it's a longer discussion, but we do have the support of the Foreign Language Consortium to move forward so that students don't lose this opportunity, and then we will go back and revisit the language later. I don't think there is a quick fix at this time.
Thank you, Hannah. Is there any further debate before we vote on the motion?
Angelo and then Sarah.
Yeah, I wanted to add quickly, I want to thank this body for with its vote to giving us the opportunity to have a constructive conversation with our colleagues from the ESL discipline. And as it was said, we have still some issues in terms of which courses specifically are supposed to be included in this language. And I think Miguel also added that maybe we should be adding more disciplines to this language, just rather than just languages. So as Hannah just correctly said, the consortium was in favor of moving along with the understanding that in the fall, we're going to have a good conversation about applying the necessary changes to make it the whole thing clear and understandable for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelo. And Sarah?
Thank you. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be here last time due to a medical emergency. But as an LAS program coordinator that oversees a degree that has a foreign language requirement, we have been using obviously this substitution because it's BOR policy, and I would be very concerned to see it taken away from ESL students. So I'm glad that it is being discussed and moved forward.
Thank you. Bonnie, you asked a point of clarification in the chat, but that won't be captured for the minutes unless you articulate it.
Just a point of clarification, are we looking for a motion to change the name that is highlighted in red, or is it the whole English as a second language? I also, due to being out of the country, was not able to attend the last meeting, so I'm not sure specifically what is being modified.
We are moving from the Connecticut Community College system to the Connecticut State Community College. That is the change.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further debate before we move to a vote?
Minor point, Sarah Sieglow, shouldn't it be ESOL now and not ESL?
Yes.
Hasn't that designation been changed?
Mike?
Yes, it probably should, because that group has changed their discipline designation. So Hannah, would you agree with that? And then we would have to have, I guess, a friendly
Yes.
amendment.
Yes, definitely. That's a good idea.
So ESOL, and Hannah, correct, it's English.
English for
Foreign
speakers of other
speakers.
languages.
Of other languages. I don't know if that had been done when we started this policy work, so thank you for pointing that out.
And we have a motion and a second. Does this change impact that motion?
Yes, it does, because it was name change only on the first motion, so we need to amend.
Who was our?
It was my motion, so I will amend my motion to accept the changes as presented, or as I move to
As
accept
edited?
the policy language as proposed with the edits.
And who was our second?
I was, and I concur.
Thank you. Any further debate? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
We're at 28.
28, thank you. Lower your hands. All those opposed? Any opposed? No votes opposing. Any abstentions? Any abstentions? One abstention. Was it 28 yes? No,
2801.
Thank you, sir. All right, folks, we are going to take a quick 5-minute break and we will resume at 2:05. I will share with you that the 2 resolutions that were added to our agenda have been added to our SharePoint. And when we return, I will be asking for an extension of our time from 2:30 until 3 o'clock. I hope it doesn't take quite that long, but we will return at 2:05. We are in recess. Thank you.
I love recess. You can actually talk to people. Anyone still here?
Hey, Hannah, it's Steven.
Hi.
Just out of curiosity, do you know if there is any updates? Because I know I put in the chat last time in regards to how AP and CLEP credits affect the foreign language, and I think it was part of the conversation last time. I didn't know if you knew if there's any updates regarding how those impact the foreign language requirement, if you're part of the conversation.
There was a discussion actually on Curriculum Congress about those. And Amy Fest was sharing that there is a group working on transferability of them and how the CLEPs work overall, because they were handled differently at all the different colleges. So I think it's a moving piece, and I don't think there's a final answer to that. But the CLEP scores, the cut scores, or the scores, I think they were accepted.
I'm listening, Hannah, to this CLEP score. It's Michelle. I need a rubric on how to interpret CLEP scores, and that was my question in the other meeting where,
okay.
Yeah, that before I can really speak to something, where is it so I can really look at it, wrap my mind around it, understand it, and then vote on it.
Oh, okay. You know what? I may be able to get that to you, to both of you, and if you could help then communicate that further with your respective groups, I'll be happy to do that. I have, I think, something like that from the SDC.
Oh, okay.
I'll reach. I think they were. It's a very controversial topic, I think.
Well, I had a student. The reason why I ask is I have a student, and he's very bright, so he was able to CLEP a few things without complication, and he was even going to try to CLEP lifespan, but I guess you can't CLEP lifespan. So then he gave me the scores, and I was shocked because I expected to see like not just a raw number, but the raw number and just said pass. So now I'm like, well, I'm assuming he passed, but I don't see it in large letters. I would think the student would want to see that too. So that's where it's very strange to me.
Michelle, maybe we can talk about this offline,
Yeah.
because I think there's more to it. One thing that came up was, I think there is, how do you call it again? They can basically have an exam with an individual professor, and that was also discussed, because the
I think he did a multiple choice test he went and took.
Yeah, those have regulated standards.
Right.
Hey, Michelle. I know because I work with the CLEPs a lot. Usually they go on through a 1 to 6 score system. And I'm sorry, no, I'm thinking of the AP credits. You're thinking of CLEP. I think for CLEP it does give you a score too, but I believe you do have the option of taking them for pass fail. So
he had a 71. I just remember that.
you should be able to transfer it still then, but the admissions office, you shouldn't really have to do all too much with it. He just needs to send it to admissions for them to evaluate those.
I think it's more or less, I'm just being inquisitive. I want to understand what happened and what does that mean if anyone ever asked me. And I don't know how to explain it. I'm like, well, is a 71 equal to a C minus? Is it on some other type of system? So I have no
I'll
idea.
dig it up. For the languages, I can dig it up for you because I
Yeah.
just saw that from the Foreign Language Consortium. So I'll send you what I have, okay?
Oh, thank you so much.
If I may chime in for a second, I wanted to share
Last
one
comment,
thing.
because we do need to resume our meeting, Angelo.
Yeah, so UConn doesn't accept any CLEP results
Oh,
for the CLEP people. And the CLAP doesn't actually have CLAP for all languages in this case, just a few. And the other thing about the discussion with the ESL colleagues or ESOL colleagues is that, like them, we have been penalized heavily in terms of loss of as students just because we keeping giving these waivers to in a lot of situations, including high school students. To date, we are the only ones who giving credit to students who took Spanish, for example, in high schools. No one else is. And we feel like, you know, we constantly lose students, our enrollment suffer because we keeping giving these waivers to a number of different disciplines
Angelo,
or students.
Angelo,
I'm done.
thank you. In the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and call us back into session.
Clip is hot.
I am confident that this conversation could be animated and interesting for quite some time. But Angelo, coming back into session, the next item on the agenda is the
C'est moi.
college inaugural photo and the possible in-person meeting. So the floor is yours, sir.
But what was the question again? I'm sorry.
The item on the agenda is you talking about the meeting where we might have lunch and the
Oh, yeah, yeah.
inaugural photo.
Yeah. So, okay, as mentioned to Elle in previous messages, I had no idea it would be so hard to organize something that's rather simple in May. It looks like in May, restaurants are like assaulted by armies of people graduating and celebrating, and it really was hard. Having said that, I selected a place that has a little historic vibe into it, since this event is supposed to be historical, important, and ended up choosing a place. It's also kind of a central in Connecticut, which is Haddam. It's a kind of rural setting, beautiful opera house, the Goodspeed House and all that. And I booked us for September the 22nd. So when we come back from the summer and not right after the semester starts, so 22 days after, so we should be kind of calming down. At this place called Marina. I just received the menu literally like an hour and a half ago. So I don't know if I can share with you guys all the details they made, but I guess we'll post them. But if you like to know the details, the menu, the event is going to be a buffet kind of thing with about 4 different entrees, a little bit of everything like veggies.
Angelo,
Yeah.
Could you frame this as a motion? So I'm wondering,
Sure.
are you proposing a motion to physically meet in person at a particular place?
Yes.
For our September meeting?
Yes. I'm moving to meet this Marina restaurant in Haddam on September 22nd. That's my motion.
This is Roberta. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions or debate?
I just have a problem with it. It's over an hour drive for me up in Winstead. And
It's historic. It's once in history. It's a beautiful place too, by the way. It's worth the drive.
Well,
I love this idea. I'm just concerned for people that maybe on more than one committee. And I don't know how, if that is a conflict, if they have a conflict. Otherwise, Angela, I think I would wine and dine with you any day. You seem to have great taste.
Did I mention that wine is included?
Peter.
I should have.
Yeah, I love the idea. Again, I commute an hour and 15 minutes each way. There's never going to be a perfect spot in this state. You know, it's the
Right.
smallest state as it is. It's probably 3 hours in its longest way. So, Angelo, I think on behalf of me, I appreciate your effort, and I would love to join. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Nicole and then Michelle.
I also have a long commute. Would it just be the same time as the regular meeting, so noon to 2:30?
So for next year, I'm actually proposing a time change from 12:30 to 3:30, both a time change as well as a half-hour extension. But that we haven't gotten to that agenda item yet.
Thank you. That's helpful for planning.
Yes, ma'am. And Michelle?
Yes, you said it's in Winstead?
No,
Hamden.
it's in Haddam, nearby Middletown.
Oh, Haddam. Oh, okay. Yes, that's okay. Sounds great. Oh, is that that's the Opera House?
Right before that, yes.
Right before the, okay, I know it. Yes, thank you.
So folks, if you have already spoken, if you could take your hands down. Michelle and then Bonnie. Bonnie.
I would just like to propose to be able to take that picture.
I don't know what.
No, I'm just saying I'd like to volunteer to
Oh,
take
you're
the group
volunteering
picture.
to physically
Volunteering
take
to
the
take the group picture.
Thank you.
She's
Thank
got
you.
some experience with it. She's good.
Very good. And Patrick.
I just wanted to state, I know many of you would be traveling long distances and how that works in the workday and things like that. I think Middlesex would be probably the closest campus by location. I'm sure we could work out something for space or location, you know, maybe not ultimate privacy, but you know, at least a space where if people were looking to make the day out of it, we could accommodate you know, some meeting spaces or classroom space. Maybe not classroom, but meeting space, I'm sure.
Thank you, sir. Any further questions or comments? And Brian, could you read the motion?
Hold on a second. So the actual motion is to accept the proposition for the photo to take place in Haddam, Connecticut at the marina. The date is September 21st.
Second.
Excuse me.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further debate?
Okay.
All those in favor?
Should I vote?
Yes, I'm the only one who doesn't, who is prevented from voting.
Okay.
In fact, you cannot, you can vote against your own motion. You can't speak against your own motion.
You're not prevented from voting.
I am. I
I
read
thought
it
it
in
was
Robert's
self-serving
rules.
in a way. That's
You're
why
not.
I asked.
I can only vote in times of a tie.
No. Absolutely not. That is a complete, no, that's incorrect.
Well, I will have to talk to you about what
We'll
I
chat
found.
about it. We'll chat about it. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. John, how many yeses do we have?
27.
27. Thank you.
Well,
Lower
it
your hand.
changed. Oh, no, what? Never mind.
Let's see how much opposition and abstentions we have. Crystal, are you voting against?
Shit. Yes, I'm voting against. I didn't get to finish what I was saying before because I got cut off, but I am opposed.
Okay. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, one In opposition, go ahead and lower your hand. Any abstentions? So John, what was the final vote?
I was not keeping track of hands, just
27 to 1 to 0.
I think Brian writes it down. Thanks for writing it down, Brian.
Got you.
So this brings us to our next motion, which begins to address our meetings. Much of this information I have already shared with you in email. As I did research on recording meetings, I learned that there are implications when we record a meeting, which include how long we must keep track of them, the disposal process, as well as other transparency issues. So I am asking Senate to make a motion. I am asking for a senator to make a motion on whether or not the Senate will continue to record meetings. Have to decide if a link is shared on our webpage. Alan.
I move that Senate meetings be open to the public, but not recorded.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Roberto, did you second?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Any debate? Hannah?
I know that many people are really uncomfortable about being recorded, and I sympathize with that. I always look terrible on the screen. My hair looks wild. I cannot revise exactly what I've said, all kinds of things. But I do feel that, especially in this time of great change, where we don't have this long history with one another that we have on individual campuses and informal feedbacks, I think it's important to not just record the results of what is being said, but also be totally accountable. If we don't want video recording, I would at least vote for audio recording. It also helps the person who does the minutes.
I don't know that we would have the option for an audio recording, Hannah, just a complication, but we would have to determine that this fall, if this motion fails, when we settle on a format, on a provider. So, Angelo?
I have all respect for Alan. That's what I'd like to ask you. Could you share what are your concerns about having the meetings video recorded?
Al, if I may?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm concerned, quite frankly, that if we don't, follow all of the protocols and legal requirements, that we, may be in violation of the law. There may be sanctions involved. Already, this is, how many meetings have we had? 5 or 6? We may already be in violation of the law because the meetings have been recorded, and I don't know that we've met all the requirements. I'm not trying to hide anything. That's why the first clause of my motion was that the meetings be open to the public. I want to be transparent. Anyone can come, observe, request to participate. But that's my concern.
If I may, Al?
So I'm going to try to limit this to not speaking more than twice. So go ahead, Angelo.
I just was wondering if anybody here could comment on these legal issues that we might have, because I don't know of any.
So
Can
I know
speak?
people's hands are up, but we do have an order of an order of hands, and I'm not sure that we can respond to the vagueness of that question. Angelo, if you'll capture a specific question in the chat, I'll try to get an answer for you.
Okay.
Okay. Angelo, Sarah. Sarah Siglio?
Yep, I'm here. I agree with Alan that we should not record the meeting, acknowledging the situation of having this discussion while the meeting is being recorded. I think that we are in a very uncertain time, and that especially with the financial crisis that doesn't look like it's going to resolve soon. We don't know people's employment situations. We don't know their environment where they work. We don't know what people may retaliate against or not. And I think that it protects people to have minutes that are accurate and clear and capture what's discussed, but also that I think it will create a more open environment to allow people to express opinions, make mistakes, and change their mind, which when it's recorded is a little more difficult to do. And I do believe that newer employees should be on committees like this because that perspective is important, but we also have to acknowledge that contractually they're in a very different situation than more senior employees. So those are my concerns. I would prefer just minutes.
Thank you. Peter?
Yeah, I was going to basically say largely the same thing. I just think it's really important to use the change argument as a way, as a reason not to do the recording, just because I think candid truth is really, really important. There's a lot going on here. And I think to provide a forum like this where we're trying to do our best, I think it's really important for us to be candid and honest. And I do worry about inhibiting factors with having something recorded. That being said, I fully agree, open to the public, and there should be a comprehensive and timely distribution of minutes. So again, there's no attempt at all to hide anything. But again, I don't think a recording is necessary. So thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I don't know if Mike Stefanowicz or John was next.
Good, Mike, I'll defer.
Thank you, and thank you for the time. As I think all of you know, I've been involved in very controversial work over the past 3 years. There are many meetings I've been part of where I wish we had been recording. People's intentions have been questioned. People's work ethic has been questioned. Those are not often recorded minutes. Disturbing things have been said, bordering on, I would feel, slander or character assassination. I think recording, while it may limit some conversation, does lead to a level of accountability. Just last week in a meeting, a statement was made that minutes from some of our committees were not clear, or the intention was to deceive, or there was some insinuation that things were not clear. So if you do not have recordings, I would suggest that you keep very detailed minutes. Even with recordings, sometimes people have different perceptions of how things happened in a meeting. And I do think that it is very helpful to have kind of a backup. So I'm sharing that as a personal experience. I understand that conversation can be much more open when there isn't a recording. However, I've also been seeing the downside of that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. John, and then Peter.
Yeah, I support the idea of recording the meetings. I understand maybe some folks being uncomfortable with video, and you can set up WebEx to just record audio and not have to do video. I don't think that the data retention is terribly difficult, although it is a little bit extra work, the process in post. But even with conversations like we had earlier in the agenda about things that took place in other meetings, it's sometimes very helpful just to get clarity ahead of time by visiting recordings of other meetings versus having to rely specifically on minutes. And as someone that's also taken notes for meetings, and it's very helpful to be able to go back and review and make updates when you have a recording. So I think the benefits of recording outweigh the issues.
Thank you, John. Peter?
I just wanted to ask a quick question of Brian. How helpful are the recordings for you in terms of minutes? We need accurate minutes. How helpful are the recordings to you?
I do not use the recordings pretty much at all. Your minutes are at least 4 to 5 pages, if not longer. I've seen minutes from other meetings, and quite frankly, I mean, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I think I do a pretty good job. So I will leave the Senate to decide if the minutes are helpful and as detailed as they want. But I sit here for 3 hours and type like crazy and interrupt all of you to stop to ensure records are accurate. So
Well,
the recording is only.
Job.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. The recording is only actually, I've only had to go to the recording once in the 4 meetings for a very minor change to which I've adjusted for all of the votes, which are bold and italicized for everybody to see votes, including counts.
Okay.
So this is a Senate discussion between all of us and our preferences. But thank you for considering me.
Roberta?
Thank you. I was just going to simply say that we could record, for lack of a better word, our minutes using a transcription or something like that through the editor feature in Microsoft Word. I know that with student governments, we've done that in the past to help support students in their minute taking, and it sounds so simple, but it has been very helpful and beneficial. I can understand Mike and other individuals' concerns about what takes place in meetings, and I feel like if everyone is acting with integrity, then that should suffice. But I can also respect and understand how people may have felt in the last few years. That said, I seconded the motion initially because I'll be quite frank, I know what a pain in the backside it is to have to deal with the data retention and the destruction of data, and who has the authority to request copies of those minutes? Does it have to go through the FOI process and all that sort of thing? And I just know that's an added burden that I'm not sure that our executive leadership of Senate really has to or would want to contend with. So thank you.
All right. I am hoping to conclude this, folks, because we do need to officially extend our meeting to 3 o'clock. So moving on to Alan, Colina, and Hannah.
Thanks, Al. And Mike, thanks for sharing your perspective. I just had a quick question. Were those meetings that you were speaking about, were they open to the public, or were they private meetings?
Who are you speaking to, Alan?
Mike Stefanowicz.
Some were open to the public, some were open to our college community. I don't know, when you say public, do you mean outside entities?
I just mean, were they private meetings, or were others able to observe? Others invited?
Others were able to observe or attend. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And Colina?
Yeah, so just because I think it's a really substantive issue, whether you want this recorded or not, in terms of the support, I might be overstepping, but I'll just say that at FAC, it's as simple as emailing the link to the meeting recording from WebEx to someone at system office who can hold on to that. I don't know. I mean, I think that's the reason for having central office support. And I would suppose that you could get that support also. So if it's just the technical issues, I'm sure you can get support. But, the question, I agree with Mike. I was part of that conversation last week, Mike. And I do wish that we had more recordings so that we can, refer to things and get the story straight.
Hannah.
Just right now, my earphones are not working. I just wanted to say, I think at this time, for me at least, it's really important that we make clear that there is total transparency. I think there are a number of people that think, in these committees, and we don't know what's going on there. We don't get enough communication. I think anything we can do to reverse that impression or to counteract that impression and be inclusive, give people, whether they can be there at that time, if they cannot make it, that they have a chance to get full view of what was going on. At least at this time of transition, I would really recommend to record either as audio if people don't feel comfortable with video, or as a video, and make that available for people. But that's my recommendation.
Roberta, you're our last one, and then I'm hoping to take a vote, folks.
I was going to withdraw my second.
Oh, and it is there a second to the motion?
I'll second Sarah Sieglow.
Thank you, Sarah. So our motion remains. Seeing no hands, all
Could
those
you
in
please
favor.
restate the motion? I'm sorry.
Oh, nope, no problem. Brian?
So the motion at hand is to allow meetings to be public but not recorded moving forward.
Thank you, sir. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. All those in favor, raise your hands. John?
We have 8 in favor.
Go ahead and lower. All those opposed? John?
13, 14 opposed. What? Hold on. 15 one. Oh, changing on. 15 opposed. Oh, now it's back to
15.
14. Oh, it changed again. Oh, it changed again.
Okay, folks, we need you to keep your hand up. Just hold on so that we can get this count.
All right, hold on. 16 opposed.
16 opposed. Thank you. And go ahead and lower your hands. And abstentions. Jeremy W., are you a senator? Jeremy? Jeremy W. John, don't count Jeremy W. It's not clear to me that he is a senator. We've asked senators to add their designation when they come into the WebEx.
All right, so that's 4 without. Oh, yep. Oh, hold on. Lots of flashing here. Yeah, 4.
Okay. The motion failed.
I have to learn how to change my designate. I don't know how to do that.
Roberta?
Excuse me, Al, we missed old business letter D, the gateway discussion about registration.
I'm so sorry.
That's quite
You're
all
right,
right.
we did.
All right.
As soon as we finish this, we'll go back to D.
Okay.
Roberta.
I
Thank you
apologize.
for
I
bringing
thought you were done.
Well, so it looks like we're going to continue to record. Is there any, Brian,
Yes.
your hand is up, sir.
I apologize. Still typing. My apologies.
Oh, okay, very good.
Al, I have a quick point of order. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Miguel.
In the chat, Jeremy indicates he is a senator. So I would suggest allowing him to cast his vote however he wanted to choose it for the last vote.
Go ahead, Jeremy. How did you want to cast your as an abstention? Okay, thank you. And folks, I did send instructions on how folks could add the designation. And we addressed it at the beginning of the meeting in chat as well. Mike Stefanowicz.
Thank you. Just a 2-minute point. In addition to transparency concerns that have been raised repeatedly over the past few years, we've often heard concerns that a small group of people are making decisions for the entire community. And I would encourage you, I put in the chat, but you may wish to go back and ask through your local college or campus settings if people would like these meetings recorded. As representatives, I do feel that, there are lots of people who may review these recordings or in addition to the meeting minutes. So you may wish to get feedback from local constituents, if you will. Thank you.
And folks were actually asked to do that, Mike. This was an issue that was sent out an email twice. So folks did, yeah. I know you're not on the email, you're not on the email distribution list, so you wouldn't have known that. All right, we are going to return to the item that I skipped, which is discussion of registration time for students, which was tabled from our last meeting. But before we do that, is there a motion to extend our time to 3 o'clock today? Is there a motion to extend our time to 3 o'clock today?
I'll make a motion.
Who was that?
Peter.
Thank you, Peter. Is there a second?
Roberta will second.
Thank you. Any debate?
Sorry, earlier you mentioned the possibility of having an additional meeting altogether. When are you thinking of doing that? Because now we're starting to get into, sorry, I don't have my camera on. We're starting to get into issues of uncompensated time for folks, because CT State was very careful about how they calculated everything.
I'm hesitant to talk about that in depth right now because we have another motion. I do think it is part of the compensation issue that is going to have to be addressed, Miguel. But the reality is we have not finished old business. We have not finished new business since our March meeting. Every meeting we have had to delay. So we are not getting things done in 2.5 hours. And so when we get to the agenda item of proposed dates for our next academic year, I am asking for half an hour to be added to our time. In addition, I am asking that we delay the beginning so that we do not bump up against Curriculum Congress running over a little bit. So
which is also happening consistently.
Right, which is why I am asking to make the changes that I think are necessary to permit us to do the business that we need to do in a more timely manner.
Yeah. Okay.
So we do have a motion and a second. All those in favor of extending the meeting, please raise your hands. John?
26.
Go ahead and put your hands down. We have 4 hands remaining. 3. All those opposed? Roberta, are you opposed? Okay, there we go. All those opposed to extending our time? All those opposed? We have 1 opposed. And any abstentions? And 1 abstention. The motion carries. We will continue until 3 o'clock. Thank you, folks. I appreciate the extension. I do believe it is necessary. Roberta.
Thank you.
Do you have a presentation on this as well as a motion to introduce?
I just have an introduction statement and my motion.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So now that the 12 community college campuses have registered students as one community college, we think it's important to ensure equity in the course registration process, specifically to include the time the registration portal opens to students. For example, some campuses began registration at midnight and others at 6 a.m. Students whose home campuses are among the urban colleges may not have regular access to computers at midnight and so consequently may experience more barriers during the opening day of registration. In some cases, these technical barriers cannot be rectified until the on-campus personnel are available and their offices are open, thus leaving some students unable to secure vital classes needed to meet admission requirements or ability to secure courses at the time and location most convenient for them. That said, I move that we request CT State Community College leadership to set the opening of future registration cycles to begin during normal business hours when information technology, enrollment services, and advising offices are properly staffed to ensure equitable access to registration on each campus.
Thank you, Roberta. And what exactly is your motion?
That CT State Community College leadership set the opening of future registrations to begin during normal business hours.
Thank you.
I second that.
Thank you.
Who was the second?
Lisa Boyko.
Thank you, Lisa. Brian, did you capture the motion?
I did, yes.
Any debate? John?
Yeah, what's normal business hours? Is there a standard set across all 12 campuses?
Dr. Meduco, do all the campuses open at the same time?
No, I believe there's a variation with one or two. Can everyone hear me? I'm on AirPods. Yes? Great. And to echo the question, I guess I understand the intention and definitely wrapped around the needs of our students. So that's something I definitely commend and appreciate. I think this is our complexity in terms of what is the definition of normal business hours. Like, is it banker's hours, which again, for a lot of our students, that's not it. If you work third shift or elsewhere, and I think there needs to be intentionality with how we survey that from the standpoint of our employees, but also from the perspective of our students, right? To find a nexus of what is that going to look like.
Miguel?
Might I suggest we amend the motion to make a specific time? Let's say 9 o'clock. That way we know everybody's open by 9 o'clock, right? And that's when the start of it. To Dr. Meduco's points, we know that our students aren't necessarily registering available during the day to register, they may register at night. But at least if you have a common starting point, you at least have that, you remove that as an issue of unfairness from, if one student can register at midnight, one student can register at 6 a.m., one student can't register until 9 a.m., that type of thing. Just a suggestion.
I was gonna amend it to say that. Thank you.
Kirsten?
Hi, I also think maybe we should consider removing the word properly staffed and just have it state staffed, because that could be another debate.
Good point, good point.
Thank you.
That gave me a chuckle.
Bonnie, and then I'm going to ask for a revision of the motion. So Bonnie, go ahead.
A question, is that going to interfere with those students who can register online if able to, or is this just for those students who need to physically come to registration that we are looking to amend the time?
This is for all students. So the registration portal will open at 9 a.m. whether they are registering in person or online.
Thank you.
Kirsten, is your hand up again or still? Okay. Roberta, and I think it was Lisa, are you amenable to amending your motion, and if so, to what?
I move that we request CT State Community College leadership to set the opening of future registration cycles at 9 a.m. to ensure equitable access to registration on each campus.
Lisa?
I would still like to second that.
Thank you. Hannah?
Do we have any idea when we want to close it, because the evening students have a lot of problems, right? We have also differences in terms of Super Saturdays and evening registrations, which at least for our student population is really important. Should
Do
we
we
in-
close registration?
No.
Registration remains open. There were different times that it started, but we don't close registration until the courses aren't taking any more students.
Well, in person is a lot more limited, right?
No, even online.
No, I'm talking about it's like the ability for students to be there in person, basically. I'm not talking about the period opening overall. I'm talking about evening times for
Office
in-person
hours.
office hours. Thank you. That's a good way to say it. Yes.
So Handler, I'm sorry, this is Roberta. Forgive me if I'm interrupting others. So this motion is about the time in which Banner opens so that students can go in online or come into our offices and register. There's discrepancies in the time in which the registration opens.
No, I hear what you're
Yeah.
saying. Yes.
So, and our registration period is several months long.
Okay,
Maybe
I'll
if
separate
it's-
my issue out. I hear you, but I'll bring that up at another time. Thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, seeing no more hands, I will ask for a vote on the motion. Brian, can you read the motion, please?
The motion is to ask CT State leadership to open the registration portal at 9 a.m. for all campuses.
All those in favor of the motion? Brian? Not Brian, John.
We're at 29.
Back up to 29. Thank you. You may lower your hands. Four hands can remain raised. 3, 2, we need one more. Joe and Kirsten, are you voting against? There we go. Any opposed? Any opposed? No opposition. Any abstentions? No abstentions. Thank you, folks. I believe that concludes our old business from previous meetings. And that brings us to the first item under new business. I've already introduced that. The dates that I have provided, the dates I have provided are for the academic year. I am also suggesting a change to beginning at 12:30, and our meetings will run 3 hours to 3:30. As Miguel has already indicated, that is inconsistent with the hours and timing that Connecticut State guidance put forward, but I am confident that individuals will be able to work with their campuses to make the adjustments as required. So I am asking for a motion to accept the dates and times as presented. Is there a motion?
It's Nicola. I make a motion to accept.
Thank you, Nick. Is there a second?
Second it. This is Bonnie.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any discussion? Roberta?
Thank you. In recognition that we are always running over, folks may hate me for this, and I know it messes up the timing, but I really felt like maybe we should meet every other week for 2 hours and make sure we have ample time so we don't have to cut off presenters and that sort of thing. I know that's problematic, but it's worth a discussion. I don't have any problems with the dates. Those are fine, but I think 2:30 will be too late for some people that already have other conflicts.
Asantwa? Have I said that right?
A little bit, yeah. It's
No,
Asantwa.
say it for me.
Asantwa.
Asantwa. Yes, ma'am.
Just one question. I thought originally our meetings were supposed to be the third Friday of the month. And so it seems like we've made the shift to the fourth Friday of the month. And if so, then that means we wouldn't be on the same Friday as Curriculum Congress. Could we do the meetings in the morning rather than the afternoon?
Good questions.
Nicola?
I was just wondering how this lines up with the other Connecticut State Committee meetings, right? SACC, making sure that we aren't proposing to cause problems for others that serve on those committees.
Michelle?
Yes, I'm on 3 state committees. I don't know if anyone else is. I was also on a committee this morning, a state committee that too ran over. So maybe other people are in the same situation. It's been 6 hours of sitting, and I'm a little concerned if it's staggered every other week. I am on other state committees, so things are going to start to get very tricky.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maya?
Yeah, I thought it might be helpful to give some insight into the way that the schedule was designed with the 3-week cycle. I know that it may be that some months it ends up on the 4th week, but that's only if there was an event in the academic calendar, like a spring break or a holiday that caused a shift that month. And so it was very important to make sure that we had a sequence where each month there would always be at least 3 Fridays occurring, and the 4th was sort of as a swing date to accommodate fluctuations in the academic schedule. So I would just be very cautious. That is a really pretty tight schedule to try to make everything fit like a puzzle. And if we start varying from week to week and other things, it does start to break apart the way that the flow will work for campuses to be able to provide feedback from their various constituents locally, from the curriculum groups, et cetera. I hope that helps.
So it was a 3-week cycle, not a 3rd Friday, Maya?
So it was a 1st Friday, 2nd Friday, 3rd Friday, but if you go back to the document that's on the website on the governance site, it does explain that the 4th week in every month was as a swing week. So for example, we experienced that this semester where spring break occurred and the whole cycle had to shift for, I don't remember if it was the SDCs moved a week later or if it was the SACs, but as a result, the governance structure entirely had to shift. And so same thing on campuses. If that has to be built out in the schedule in advance so that, let's say, campuses have department meetings. If there's the same academic meetings in the schedule that causes governance to shift, that should be reflected in campuses. So it does need to be planned out carefully. The dates have not formally been locked in for the fall. I think that we're waiting for these groups to wrap up for the year before finalizing that. But it is a carefully built puzzle, and it could destabilize pretty quickly if these meetings start moving around and start replicating in other places.
Which is part of the reason I was trying to get out ahead of the ahead of the field. Michelle, is your hand still up? I'm going to go to Dr. Meduco, but Dr. Meduco and then Mark.
Yeah, I recommend to myself and to the administration to really begin the communication across our campuses on how do we reserve certain days of the week so that our stakeholders can participate in various committees and councils and wizardry or whatever people are doing. to really have like meeting holidays where just certain days of the week, it's just CTC will not call a meeting with anyone to give hours and time back. We're willing to do that because I know our people are spread thin. I know often there's completing priorities and we're not trying to add more burden to people. So, that's something that we would be willing to do, and also engage with the campus CEOs and presidents on what are their designated days when they're having their all campus meetings, and also with the system office on, when do they plan to kind of put out the schedule for board meetings and other committees. I just think there's so many layers to our system and to the individual campuses and to our central office that I think that working communication needs to begin now, so that we're not running into these challenges come the next academic year.
Thank you. Mark?
I'm perfectly okay with 12:30 and 3 hours. I would just like to emphasize that our meetings stick to whatever the schedule is, as we are all extremely busy, and it makes us feel guilty if we have to skip out from a meeting that's been extended. And it's a long meeting as it is, and I would hate to see a 3-hour meeting creep into a 3.5-hour meeting. So let's stick to the times that we've got, but I'm okay with 3 because it doesn't seem to be enough for 2.5.
So we have a motion to accept the time change as well as these dates. It is not clear to me. It seems to me that we are getting out ahead of any other group. So subsequent groups can align their meetings. And lacking a better proposal, I'm going to ask for a vote. Oh, I see a hand. Who?
It's Roberta. Might we separate this vote in two? Might we vote on the dates and then deal with the hours afterward?
We can.
I think that would help expedite.
If there is a friendly amendment.
Are you okay with that, Nicola?
So we have more speakers. Dr. Maduko, is your hand up again or still? John?
Yeah, I just think it might, if we considered mission creep to the time, we might also see this similar type of thing taking place with other groups. So giving us a half-hour break between the meeting prior to this one and this one, we might see them also say, hey, we're not getting our work done in the 2.5 hours, and we'll need to expand to 3 again, which can just lead to increases in delays in the schedule. And I, for one, would prefer the challenge of trying to fit everything we need to do into the truncated time that we have available, even if that means, items spilling over and then maybe needing to have an extra meeting would work better, at least for my schedule, than having, a 3-hour meeting that, starts to turn into 3:15 in the first half of the semester and 3.5 by the end, if we're not keeping up.
Thank you. Miguel, and then Michelle, is your hand up?
It is up. I agree. The only reason is the meeting I had before was scheduled from 9 to 11:30 and it went into 12:15, and then your meeting started at 12. And so, yes, it's just everyone is trying to wrap their mind around how much time. And again, I'm on 3 state committees. So if it all starts to be that way, they started off a certain way and they're just getting almost to like a day and a half if you add up everything.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Miguel.
Yeah, just a quick point in terms of the dates, especially knowing from what Maya was talking about, I know we've had to shift. It's 3rd or 4th Friday. So I might suggest just tweaking the language of the motion to say the 3rd or 4th Friday of each month, of the months or whatever, just to line up with what CT State is going to do for the whole process. Just to, So we can avoid having to come back to say, oh, we need to change this date to a week later or whatever it might be.
Alan.
Thanks, Al. Also, yeah, I agree with Miguel. If the amendment said we'll meet the third or fourth Friday, and if we set the first date for August, and what if we also say, agree that if possible, or if needed, I should say, we agree to meet during the summer.
The only thing I would say to that piece, Alan, is that our first meeting is in September. I provided the August date just as the first day of classes as an anchor, not as a suggestion that we were meeting in August.
Thanks.
Brian, what is the motion on the floor?
So the motion is still to accept the dates and times as presented. We are still on that with a second on that motion.
Nicola had accepted the friendly amendment.
And what was the amendment?
We didn't actually have a text of the friendly amendment.
To separate the vote between the dates and times.
Okay.
So accept the dates. And then a second motion would come subsequently for the times. Okay. And there was a suggestion to also say third or fourth Friday to align with CT State schedule. Miguel, I think that came from you. Are you asking for a friendly amendment?
Sure. If we think it'll facilitate things. I'm not trying to complicate it. I just want to try to make things easier and smoother.
Nicola, and I don't know who the second was. Are you open to that? And Bonnie?
Yes.
You are. Okay. So the motion is to accept the dates as presented, as they will align with the Connecticut state schedule to be the third or fourth Friday. All those in, Michelle, are you speaking again? We have heard from you. Is your hand still up? Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that. The hand seems to be going up on itself. I don't know what's happening.
You really, really want to participate. All those in favor of the motion? All those in favor of the motion? John? 21? Thank you. Put your hands down. Lower your hands. Peter, Kirsten, all those against? All those in opposition? All those in opposition? No opposition. Abstentions? Any abstentions? The motion carries. We have the dates. Now the issue of time. Is there a motion for our meeting times to begin at 12:30 and go until 3:30?
It's Nicola. I make a motion.
Thank you.
And I'll second it. This is
Thank you, Bonnie. Alan?
Could I propose a friendly amendment to also include agreeing to meet during the summer if necessary, if called by the Executive Council?
Nick and Bonnie, are you amenable to that change? Yes and yes. Thank you very much. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those in favor? All those in favor, please raise your hands. John?
19.
19. Lower your hands, please. All those opposed? All those opposed?
Three.
Go ahead and lower your hands. Any abstain? Any abstentions? One abstention. The motion carries. Our final item on the agenda, I have a feeling Sandy had to leave. Sandy, are you still here?
She did. She
She
wrote
had
she
to
had to,
leave.
she had to leave at 3 o'clock.
She had to leave. So I will present the issue and ask for a motion. The issue itself is asking President Maduco. Seems kind of funny to be doing this with you here when we can just ask you to set this. But we are asking for President Maduco to set regular and recurring office hours. The motion itself was to have me talk to him about this, about establishing this. So is there a motion? Is there a motion to request President Maduco establish regular and recurring office hours? Dr. Maduco, you could simply weigh in here and say that you would be willing to do this.
So I guess I need more context and clarity for me. Is that for this body? Is that for Madam President? Is that for everybody, both internally and externally? I just need to
It
know
was
what.
for you. It was asking you to set office hours, virtual, regular and recurring office hours, about 2 hours, so that folks could sign up and just drop in and have conversations with you, was the spirit of the agenda item.
I could do an hour, but two hours would be pushing it just due to the nature of being on the road. And I think some of you have seen me visiting campuses to walk into fires and other things. But I think that's something that I could figure out and commit to. So I'm not adverse or against that. I think we would just have to work with Denise Arroyo, who controls my life, at least with CT State, and figure out how to make that work.
Okay. Well, lacking in a motion, I think we made some progress on that nonetheless. All right, folks, we have, our time has expired even in extending, and we have 2 items that remain on our agenda. They were added and they will have to be old business items at our next meeting. I will send these resolutions out. I believe they came from Housatonic, and I will work to get some additional information about them into your hands quickly. I hope that we do not have to meet this summer, but if the budget continues to be the crisis that it has been, we will likely be calling for a Senate meeting. Thank you all for your time and your commitment to both shared governance and transparency. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I second it.
All right. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank
If
you,
the
Madam President.
Executive Council, have a good summer.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you, you too.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
If the Executive Council could remain on the call.